Joining me in the studio, Tanya Unkovic, and today we're going to be taking a look at a really big topic, a really important one, but not so easy to talk about, and that is domestic abuse. Hey, thank you so much for joining me in the studio, Tanya.
You are always welcome, Diane.
So let's talk about this one because it is a big topic, and often when we think abuse, we think of violence, we think of a lot of bullying, but sometimes it can be so much more subtle, and that's where we want to go today, right?
It's the type of abuse where you don't see the bruise. You don't see the marks on the outside necessarily, but you will, if you've been around it, you may notice the subtle signs when someone is in a relationship where there is emotional and psychological abuse.
When you talk about signs, what sort of signs are there? Is the person who is being abused, do they come across as timid, or what's perhaps some of the things that you may sort of see?
Well, low self-worth, really low sense of confidence and self-esteem. Someone who's always apologising, someone who might always be a little bit on edge. Let's say you're with a friend and you mention their partner and you notice that they're a bit on edge about it, or perhaps you're out together and they're always rushing to go home. Perhaps you don't see much of them anymore. Perhaps you're on the phone with them and they can't talk freely. So if you are someone who is a friend, those are some things to watch out for if you're noticing that.
And let's talk about the signs that perhaps you might be in an abusive relationship, but you may not actually know what it is. You just may feel like something's not right because it can be so subtle that you may not see it, right?
Yeah, and that is often the case. I've got this saying, if something feels off for you, then it probably is. So if your partner, you notice that when you're with them and they say something and then they leave the room and you're left feeling shaken, confused, oh my God, what have I done now? Then something's not quite right there, if that is something that is going on a lot. If you find that you're becoming more isolated from your friends and family and that you don't want to share what's actually going on in a relationship, that could be something that's going on. If you find that you are starting to blame yourself for everything and make excuses for someone else's behaviour all the time or what comes out of their mouth, then that's another sign. Gosh, I could go on.
Yeah.
If you find that you are always having to ask for money, beg for money, if you find that you're not being supported enough financially, those are some ways of power and control. So it's all about the other person, one person having more power over another.
Now, look, a term I hear a lot, but sometimes I feel like I don't understand it or it's misunderstood, is this term of gaslighting. Can you talk about that and what that actually is?
Well, it is one way that another person instills doubt in you over time. And they may always turn something around so that you then feel that you are the one that is wrong. You may then go, oh, maybe it was me. They may come back with a statement like, don't you remember that? I've told you that before. You know that. I've told you that before. And that makes you go, oh, okay, it's me. So it's a very subtle way of turning things around.
I think it's so subtle that it is one of those things that people just genuinely do not realise is happening, right?
They don't realise that it's happening, but what they do know is that their own level of self-worth is getting less and less, and they're becoming, I don't want to use the word depressed, but maybe depressed. They may have that much self-doubt that they don't think that there's any other way out for them, that it's just something that they've got to tolerate because maybe it is me. Maybe it's me that's creating this and making them do and say this.
Yeah. Now, often things like using the silent treatment or something like that, right? Would be a form of control, like, oh, I've done something and this person is now not talking to me. You hear about that happening quite a bit too, don't you?
Yeah, withholding love, withholding affection, withholding intimacy, controlling that way. You know, even something as subtle as you're walking down the street together and you might stop and look in a shop window and then you turn around and they've gone. They've kept walking without you, and then you've got to run after them, you know, and they go, well, you didn't watch me as I, you know, little things like that. Anything to create and instill in you this belief that actually you're just not good enough. It's scary stuff.
It is scary stuff. And I think, at what point do you go, oh gosh, this isn't just, you know, this isn't just an isolated incident. What's happening is actually causing me to become depressed or scared or not myself, not my truest sense of self. So if you get to that point, what do you do? Because then you're sort of in that realization that actually my partner is being abusive.
Yeah. Well, you know, one thing you can do is if you're still too scared to talk to someone else about it, and that is often the case, maybe if you ask yourself some questions. What am I really tolerating here? What are some of the things that I tolerate that on an intellectual level I know are actually intolerable? And it's not okay. So it's as if you kind of take yourself out of your own body and look down on yourself and go, what if I was advising a friend? If you have got the strength, then I would pick up the phone and talk to a family member or a trusted friend and just even start voicing to them what you are feeling and say, look, I don't know if this is normal or not. Please tell me. Please show me, because I'm in such a state of confusion right now. I don't know what's right or wrong.
Now, what if you don't have someone that you feel like you can trust? Is there an organisation or someone that you can go to in that regard, someone who's sort of outside your situation?
Yeah, absolutely there is. You could, Citizens Advice, you could go there. I do remember in the good old days, it was called Relationship Services, where you were actually able to go and get some form of help there. If you are confused about whether you are stuck in an abusive, narcissistic type dynamic, then good old Google will give you some solutions. Not solutions. It will help you to clarify things and get you out of that state of confusion. Just so that you don't keep blaming yourself and feeling that it is you, because it's highly likely that it's not.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever a way that you can help that other person to see what they're doing, to change them, or is that something they have to see for themselves? I mean, it seems like it's a bit of a very, well, I don't want to say hopeless, but a very difficult situation.
You know that saying, hurt people hurt people?
Yeah.
That's often the case. And yes, that is often one of the reasons that we fall into that compassion trap and go, oh, well, they've had a really hard life and this has been done to them, so this is why they are the way they are. It doesn't mean that it's okay for them to keep doing it to you or to your children, because the pattern is repeating. So I would recommend if you're in a relationship where someone is treating you that way, it's actually up to you to save yourself and to save your children and to let them get the help that they need, because it's very hard for someone to go and get help because they've been told to do it. They've got to make the decision themselves. And often it is loss of a relationship, loss of family that will make people hit a rock bottom and go, actually, I better do something about this.
And in the meantime, for the person that has been in that situation where they've been abused, professional help, really reach out to someone. Really reach out to someone, especially if you have got children, because what they are seeing, what is being modelled to them is a really unhealthy relationship. And the chances are that those kiddies are also going to grow up with low self-esteem and then get into unhealthy relationships. Yeah. So do it for yourself, do it for your children, and also do it for your partner who is also hurting. However,
they also need to take ownership of what they're doing right now.
Hey, Tanya, thank you so much for being in the studio and being willing to talk about this very difficult subject. I really do appreciate that. If
You're
people
welcome.
do want to contact you maybe and maybe get some of your wisdom, how do they do so?
Well, you can go to my website, tanyarankovic.com, or go to my YouTube channels. There's lots of resources there for you to get help.